Hello, friends. Welcome back to For the Plot. It's a miserable, rainy, grey, kind of weird day in Berlin. It's that time of month where I'm feeling absolutely mental because I'm going to bleed soon. But I have had a wonderful couple of weeks and I have lots of fun things to tell you about. So, as you may know if you were listening to episodes from previous weeks, I spent a weekend in Prague. Or actually, not in Prague itself. This was a bit of a surprise to me. I was in Copenhagen, I came back, I had the show, and then the next day I took the train to Prague. And it's such a privilege living in mainland Europe where you can basically just like get on a train, travel a couple of hours, and then be in a completely different city. And that's exactly what I did. So I took the train to Prague, stepped off, and every time I arrive in a new city, I always feel like a fucking Disney princess or something. It was like blue sky, sun is shining, old town. I go somewhere, grab a coffee. Oh my God, like heavily romanticizing my life. And then I checked the map for where I had to go. And I realized that it was most definitely not in Prague, but actually about 50 minutes away from the city centre. And I basically looked at the public transport route, and it was like a tram, a train, and a bus. Easy, right? Easy. So I took the tram and I got to the train station. And when I got to the train station, I asked, I showed on my phone, like, this is the train I want to take. And the guy was like, yeah, only 2 of those trains come a day and the next one's in 6 hours. Okay. Okay, I guess I'm not going to wait for that. So then I checked another route, but that was going to be 4 buses. And to be honest, I just didn't back myself to navigate this Czech bus system. So in the end, I took a taxi, which felt so fucking indulgent, but it only cost me 16 euros. So it was worth it. So I took this taxi to 50 minutes away from Prague, and I arrived to Petra Stalova's patisserie school. And I've been a fan of Petra for a long time. She is a Czech pastry chef. She's been doing vegan pastries and patisserie for many years. And I used to buy ingredients from her as well. She's like one of the only people in the surrounding territories, which is a fucking nuts way to say what I mean. But she's one of the only people that you can buy these like very specialized ingredients for vegan baking from. So I was kind of like fanboying to meet her. So I arrived to her pastry school, and that's also where I was staying. So broader context, I was there for the weekend for this vegan patisserie masterclass with another chef, Martina Sampaiola, who is an incredible Italian pastry chef. And so Petra was hosting it in her school. I opened the door and I was like, hi, Petra, I'm really excited to meet you. And she was like, oh, why? I was like, oh, I've been quite a fan of your work for a few years. And she was like, didn't say anything. I said, oh, sorry, have I made you feel awkward? And she was like, I am autistic. I am always awkward. And honestly, it checks out because to be a really, really, really talented pastry chef, you do need to be neurodivergent in some way, shape or form. So she showed me to my room, which was an adorable little like hideaway above the kitchen, and it was such a perfect setup. So she had this apartment, and there were 3 rooms in the apartment and a kitchen and a dining table, and then downstairs she has her part of the house and then this huge kitchen, which was my dream kitchen. It's like counters all around the outside, a big island in the center, all of the equipment you could possibly want or need. She had like 2 big ovens, blast chiller, freezers, fridges, all of the ingredients your heart could desire to bake with, and a little conservatory where you could sit and look out into the garden. And so I mentioned this place was 50 minutes away from the center of Prague, and it was really right in the countryside. Like, I didn't expect it. I hadn't really, because I was so kind of like tunnel vision on all of the things I was doing before, I just hadn't really looked where I was going. And so the evening that I arrived, I decided to go for a walk, and I walked down this country lane, I guess. And at some point I found this turquoise shed, which, well, not a shed, right? Like almost like a portaloo, bright turquoise. And the way that it was set against the sunset, it looked like Tumblr as fuck, is the only way I can describe this. When I was 15, I would have been reblogging the shit out of this thing. And I continued along this country lane, and I got to kind of, I don't know, a farm of some sort. And there were sheep. And then I saw further up the hill, there were llamas. So I walked around the side of the the end of like where the fence was and walked up further so I could get closer to the llamas. And as I was standing looking in at the llamas, I had one of those moments where you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like every decision I've made in my life has led to this moment where I'm in the Czech countryside, leaning over a fence to try and get a closer look at a white llama that definitely shouldn't be here. And then when I was walking back to the accommodation and to the pastry school, I crossed paths with a farmer. And again, I had this moment of like, what the fuck? Like these two characters, me and this farmer, we should never have met. We should not be crossing in the same timeline. And yet, here we are. So it was quite an idyllic setting for the weekend. And what we did in this masterclass, we basically had five pastries we were making. Each of them had 4 or 5 different elements to them. Each of these different elements you obviously need to prepare. Some of them need to be set, some of them need to be frozen. So we did a lot of this kind of preparation stuff on the first day for 5 different pastries, which is insane to try and cover. And then the second day was assembly and eating. And it felt like a very, very indulgent weekend for me because vegan patisserie is like one of these side quests that's a bit more than a side quest. I spend a lot of time thinking about pastry, about baking, about sweets, about patisserie, about ingredients that you could use, flavors that you could combine, the way that things should look. And it felt nice to just go and do that for the weekend and be in a kitchen full of other people who think about these things in the same kind of obsessive neurotic way. So it was very validating, but it was really nice to take that time to do something just for me, something that I was interested in and something that I wanted to do for no greater purpose other than just to be there and to learn and to absorb. And of course, everything that we made was absolutely fucking delicious. And it gave me a lot of inspiration for other things that I want to try. I actually already set up a regular schedule, which I'm calling the lab, where I will be testing different flavors, different textures, different things that I want to put together. And I had the first one last week and I came up with my own new creations. And then I had a friend round on Saturday to try them and we ate them together. And to be honest, it was absolutely banging. I'm really in this kind of like creative baking mode at the moment. So the friend that came round to eat these pastries, we came round, we had tea, we ate the pastries, and then we went for a walk. And on the walk, we went into a vinyl shop. And it's one of my favorite activities. I don't collect vinyls, I don't have a record player, but I really love just looking through them, especially because usually there's these like hyper specific genres. And there were some descriptions on these vinyls that were making me laugh so much. It was like, you know, when a museum curator has just gone like a bit too far with the way that they've interpreted art that's in a particular exhibition. It felt a little bit like that. There was one record that really caught my attention as well. And the description was something like ambient soundscapes when an 80-year-old woman has been in social isolation for 4 years. Like, what is that? Under the genre music concrete or something. And then there was also like, you kind of have to be a bit satirical when you go into these spaces because they had 2 of these stations where people could like take the vinyls and put them on and put headphones on and listen to them. And there were these like on either side of the shop, there were these 2 stations, and on both stations there were guys. There was guys who had like listened to vinyls, and you know, that way they had like their hands on the headphones and their heads were bopping and they were like really vibing with it. But it's so hard to take that seriously when there's like another song playing in the background. Anyway, the whole thing was just hilarious. And if you haven't spent a lot of time in vinyl shops, I highly encourage you to do so as well. That's another fun activity you can do over a weekend. So we'd been in this record shop and then we continued our walking loop and then we went to one of our favourite restaurants. And here comes the shout out, Asia Farmhouse. It's such a fucking great restaurant. So good, huge portions, delicious Szechuan food. One thing I really like about Asia Farmhouse is there's this woman who works there. I think she's maybe the owner or the manager or something. And she's quite strict and quite stern. And I've been in there a few times, and the first time I went in, she was really strict with people. She was like telling them that they had to leave because their time was up on the table. She was like very abrupt with bringing other people in, and she sort of like would slam the menus down on the table. And I didn't find it rude. I kind of found it like quite hot, and I'm like very attracted to this older Chinese lady who runs the restaurant. Like, she makes me a little bit nervous, and I don't know, I get butterflies and adrenaline. So whenever I go there, I feel a little bit like I'm going to see someone that I have a crush on, because I am. But she starts to recognize me now, and she softens when she sees me and she smiles, and that makes me feel extra special. And so she was not serving us though. There was another guy working there, and he sat us down, and I was saying, "Oh, I'm really disappointed that, you know, it's not my not my favorite lady who's serving us." And I can't quite remember how the conversation started to unfold, but I was explaining, you know, I like her because she's so strict, and my friend was saying, yeah, I can imagine her maybe like cracking a whip, and I was like, oh my god, stop, because this really already feeds into one of my fantasies, which I'm about to share with you very candidly because this is a safe space. I have got a real fantasy about stainless steel in commercial kitchens. I can honestly not think of anything more like hot and exciting and sensual than a freshly disinfected kitchen. Like all of the this makes me sound fucking nuts, I know, but like all of the cleaning duties for the day have been crossed off. Everything has been like put into its boxes and labeled with the date. It's away in the fridge. Everything is like wiped down and clean, and everyone's gone home. All of the aprons are hanging up. All of the whites have gone into the washing machine. Like everything is spotless, and the stainless steel is just like glinting. I cannot think of anything more tantalizing than the idea of being slammed against a stainless steel counter and railed. And so now we've realised that my ultimate fantasy is basically that strict lady who runs Asia Farmhouse would take me into the kitchen and have her way with me. Story time this week is about the last time that I was in Prague. It was 2013. Jesus fucking Christ, that's a long time ago. 13 years ago. No wonder I didn't recognise the city. I arrived and was like, this is beautiful. I don't remember it being like this. Anyway, that's a bit of a spoiler for how the story ends, but let me give you the context. I was at university in Nottingham, and there was this challenge for charity called Jailbreak, which is actually like maybe a bit of a problematic name, but whatever. And the goal was basically you with two friends, so teams of 3, you had to get as far as you could away from the starting point without using any of your own money. And I was doing it with 2 friends. We got these kind of like brightly coloured long golf socks. We packed a little rucksack because we didn't know where we were going to end up. We just like took a spare change of clothes and off we set. So we left from Nottingham, and all of the teams left from the same place at the same time. And our first plan was basically, okay, we're going to go into the city centre and we're going to try and take a train or a bus to London. So we hopped on a bus to the city centre. They let us ride it for free because we were like, we're from this jailbreak thing. You know, we had like the t-shirts and the socks. And so we got to the bus centre and then asked basically every bus driver, okay, where are you going and can we take the bus? And all of them were like, no. Nobody would let us get on the bus for free. By the way, important context, it was as far as you can get in 36 hours. So we were really in this like every minute counts kind of mindset. So yeah, the first like 4 or 5 bus drivers were like, no, you may not come on the bus for free, or no, the bus is full. Eventually, we did manage to talk our way onto a bus to London. So we got on this bus to London and off it goes. A few hours later, we arrive in London. We're like, great. What now? We went to the train station to see if we could get on a free train somewhere else. Like we went to the Eurostar, I'm pretty sure, and we were like, hey, can we come? They were like, obviously not. You can't just come on the train for free. Like, yeah, it's for charity. It didn't work. And then we thought, okay, maybe we can try at the coach station. And so we started making our way there. And then we got updates from other groups from the challenge, and one of them had managed to go to an airport and get a free flight to Turkey. So we were like, fuck yeah, okay, let's go to the airport and see what we can do. So we went to Heathrow Airport. That was the wrong call because it's like the bougiest airport with the bougiest airlines who are obviously not just going to let some like scraggly charity collectors on for free. But anyway, we went to the airport and we were asking all of the desks, hey, we're doing this challenge for charity. We're trying to get as far as we can without spending any of our own money. And all of the flights, all of the airlines were obviously like, no. No, we're not going to let you on. We were like a bit depleted, a bit low energy. We'd been going for a few hours and we weren't really sure what our next plan of action was. So we're on the tube, planning to go back to central London. And there's this guy sitting opposite us, kind of looking at us, looking at our socks. And then he says to me, "Hey, I love your socks. It's a really cool uniform." I'm like, "Oh, thanks. We're doing a thing for charity." He's like, "Oh, what are you doing for charity?" "Yeah, we're raising money for... Yeah, we're raising money for... I think we were raising money for a cancer charity. And we're trying to get as far as we can in 36 hours without spending any of our own money." I was like, that's a great idea. Brilliant. Maybe I can help you out. If you get off at King's Cross with me, I'll see if I can give you some cash. And we were like, "Great, thanks so much." So we got off at King's Cross station with him, and we go to the ATM, and he has some sort of like limit on his card. But even so, he takes out 3 rounds of £250, and he gives us each £250. And he's like, "Use that to go as far as you can." And his name was Gordon Hall. And Gordon Hall was one of the very early founders or founding team of Rockstar Games. So this guy had money. And when we found this out as well, one of the friends that we were with, he was like a gamer. He was really excited. And yeah, so this guy, he gave us 250 quid each. We were like, okay, let's see where we can get with this. We basically then checked all of the flights that we could get out of London that evening or the next day. And we found one to Prague that was very cheap. So we took the return flight to Prague. We went there, and when we arrived, it was like March. So it was like round about this time of year. But I swear to fucking God, it was like we'd arrived in, I don't know, like the early 20s. I swear the city was so dark. There was snow. It felt like all the lampposts were lit with these oil lamps. So I have a very different memory of Prague. But I do remember we had this absolutely exhilarating meal where everything tasted so good because we were so tired. And at that point I was still drinking, and we had this bottle of wine, and it's the best wine I've ever had in my life. And we were just kind of like riding this adrenaline high. So that was the last time I was in Prague, and it's all thanks to Gordon Hall. By the way, rest his soul. He unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Both of my friends and myself, we were devastated when we learned the news, because he really lifted our spirits on that challenge, and I think he was just generally a good guy. The only other time I've been in Prague before this jailbreak situation was when I was doing EYP, European Youth Parliament, which you got a little teaser for in the lore last week. So this week's lore is more lore about European Youth Parliament. I have been in the Czech Republic, I think 3 times for European Youth Parliament. One time I went to Brno. One time I was in a very cute little town called Litomyšl, and my first international experience with European Youth Parliament was at an international forum in České Budějovice, or Budweis, the home of Budweis beer. And honestly, it was one of the most rogue situations of my entire life. We were a group of, I think, maybe like 100, 150 delegates, and 30 or 40 officials, and we were staying at the University of South Bohemia, which looked incredibly Soviet. It was like a, 20-something story building that we were staying in. There was an issue with the water there, so we couldn't drink the water, but it was also quite expensive to get bottled water. And I remember the organisers of the event told us, actually, it's probably better for you to drink beer or like soft alcohol rather than water because it's cheaper. And that's what we did the whole time. And I remember us referring to the golden hour, which was round about like 2 p.m, which was the only hour where anyone was really sober or conscious of what was going on. The whole session is incredibly hazy for me because, like I said, there was 1 hour of the day when we were sobered up. But I do remember at one point, I remember the food being very bad. And especially because I think I was eating vegan at that time, so the options were incredibly limited. I'm pretty sure I just ate potatoes and bread every day. But I remember one day the food option in the cafeteria was meat surprise, and nobody could identify what the meat was. When asked, the kitchen staff were like, "Oh, it's just meat." No, they wouldn't say what type of meat it was. Then there was this rumor that the cats that had been going around the campus the day before had disappeared, and then coincidentally the next day there was this meat surprise on the menu. Yeah, but I really remember that whole session being a complete mindfuck And I got a bit nostalgic because when I was waiting for my train back to Berlin from Prague this time, the train going in the opposite direction on the platform opposite me was going to Česká Budějovice, and there was such a strong temptation for me to just get on there and go there. So yeah, that was a funny experience that I had in the Czech Republic with EYP. I did crowdsource some other memories of European Youth Parliament that I have to share with you. So here are some little sound bites of what it was like to be a member of the European Youth Parliament. My friend sent me this memory. Okay, one of my core memories is guarding sandwiches with you. So for context, we were organising an event. We were like on the organising team, and we had organised catering, and we had sandwiches, but the problem is that we had not ordered enough sandwiches. And there had not been enough food earlier in the day, and people were starting to get a bit agitated, but we didn't really have enough for everyone to take two, so we had to be like very particular in the way that people were given access to these sandwiches. Look, all of these real world problems that come from discussing European politics. So my friend writes, guarding sandwiches with you, and the delegates starting to lose it with us because we were essentially starving them. I still remember your quote. And this is exactly the sort of shit that I would have said when I was 19. It's not about portion size, it's about the time they eat. As a critical piece of how we'd get through that situation. It's so true, but also you said it with the calmness of a prison officer in the 20s. And my friend that I was having this exchange with also reminded me this session that we were organising. So we'd organised this catering, and we received an invoice from them, but then the invoice was a lot higher than what we expected it to be, so then we didn't pay it because we were challenging it. And eventually we were receiving these like final demands invoices for fucking sandwiches. So extreme. Another little soundbite at another session that was being organised. Additional point, the amount of bananas Fife's banana company provided us, so every meal we provided some form of banana. I remember stacking them in pyramid form. Really, there was this huge culture around the coffee breaks at these EYP sessions. It was like a core part of the organisation. You had to take care of the coffee breaks properly. Oh my goodness. Another little soundbite. So I mentioned before in the previous lore that these sessions happened basically all over Europe. I never went to a session in the Scandinavian countries, but I had a lot of friends that did. And so this is a memory that someone shared from one of them. Being locked outside in a -20 at a sauna party in a Finnish school. Like, that whole sentence already just shouldn't exist. Like, why were you at a sauna party in a Finnish school at a European Youth Parliament session? Going from, haha, to, oh my God, I might die here in a matter of seconds. So some of these sessions that happened in the Scandinavian countries, particularly Finland, were considered, I would say, unusual, especially if you were coming from the UK, where we did things like very by the book and we had child protection policies. Let me share another story from an Estonian session that a friend went to. I slept in an Estonian school on the ground, but the heating was broken, and I didn't realise the showers were communal. So all my students saw my fanny. As British and a lover of child protection, I found this deeply disturbing. I also find that deeply disturbing. Like, why were we sharing showers with people? Like, bearing in mind, like, some of these participants are like 15, 16, and we as officials were like 19, 20, 21. Like, I know the age gap is so small, but there's really like a child protection issue there. Another friend reminded me, we had this session in Barcelona. Why did we drink champagne in a cave of stalagmites and stalactites? It's so true. So basically, this session in Barcelona, it was one of the best funded sessions I've ever been to. And the first part of the session, we basically were in a place called Cardona, which is like 2 hours north of Barcelona. And one of the things that Cardona is very famous for is its salt mines and salt caves. And so we had this like very bougie drinks reception, drinking champagne, all wearing these like hard hats in this cave. Salt cave, and it did indeed have stalagmites and stalactites. Another friend reminded me of the sessions in France. So there was basically, English was the official language of European Youth Parliament, but we also had French as a working language because French people don't like to speak English. Fair. And my friend said, why did I once go to the middle of France to share a one-person bed with 2 other people and write silly articles about children discussing politics in a language I did not understand? He also said, why were all men gay but not out? So many unanswered questions, which is such a valid assessment of European Youth Parliament. And then 2 last little nuggets of lore for you. There were sessions organised in Serbia, and they were definitely the most rogue sessions. For whatever reason, I don't know, just crazy shit used to happen there. So my friend said, we once walked to a Euro concert, which is a part of the programme, in Serbia, and were called mid-walk that the place had burnt down. My friend replies, OMG, Serbia is crazy. The head organisers got the date wrong and didn't turn up for the first day. Then they accidentally booked a strip club with cages for the party. Again, you have to remember, this is basically children organising stuff for other children. Stuff can go wrong, and it's crazy the amount of responsibility that we had. The final little lore nugget that I'm going to leave you with from EYP. So basically in 2016, we organised this conference between Dublin and Belfast, and it was supposed to be like a cross-border peace initiative. It's like the 50th anniversary of the Troubles. Jesus Christ. And we'd managed to get a lot of this this funding for reunification and peace and all of this kind of stuff. So we decided there was absolutely a fucking mental undertaking to organise in 2 different cities and transport 350 participants from one to the other. But the first part of the session was in Belfast. And we had an amazing programme, actually, like really, really, really great. Good venues, nice events. However, and this is what I was reminding my friend of, at some point, I got a text. I was on the core organising team, and I got a text from one of the organisers, like the extended organisers, being like, heads up, lads, just so you know, a car bomb has just gone off 2 streets away from the next venue. We were like, okay. How should we navigate this? And I think what we did in the end, we did like a very quick risk assessment. And this is the problem, right? We had so much responsibility and such a duty of care. But this car bomb went off. They closed the streets for a while, and then they reopened the streets, and then the traffic was all like flowing again. And I think the decision we made was, okay, a car bomb went off there earlier today, so it's really unlikely that it's going to happen again. So we're just going to go ahead and continue with the programme in the venue as planned. And not tell anyone that a car bomb went off. So yeah, that's what we did. If you were involved in anything like European Youth Parliament or Model UN or one of these youth organisations, I really, really, really want to hear about it from you. It was such a huge part of my life, and it really shaped me as a person. And I would love to hear about other people's experiences with things like that. Oh, fun times. Thank you very much for listening to For the Plot. That's all I have time for this week. Please subscribe if you haven't already, or please follow across the multiple different channels where you can consume this on. If you haven't, please like it, give it a rating, share it with a friend that might like it, and I will see you next time.